church and for giving us your home to spend time with and to learn about you. Please, God, manage our lives as you see fit. Be with the discussion today. And help us open our hearts and our minds to hear your word. And please, God, we ask you to be present in every area of our lives, in every area that we're confident in, every area we're insecure, every concern that we have. Please, Lord, let your will be done. And hear us as we pray together, saying, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. In Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Is this working? I said no, it's over. All right. No, we didn't say hi to each other. No, you can't. No, come on. I gotta start. Hello. Let's go. All right, guys. Are you ready? You ready? All right. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. I am super excited about this series. I don't care if you don't care that I'm super excited, because I do care that I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. I encourage you to ask questions, to interrupt me, to think about things. What? But not to laugh unless I tell a joke. And please think hard, all right? We're going to talk about some important things. So, the name of the series is Dating Done Right. Today, we'll go through the different talks in the series. The first one is, what is dating and the 4 dating principles. Again, guys, feel free to ask questions. All right. Why are we even talking about this today? What are some of the dating problems we're facing today? Right? None of this, I don't think, is news to any of you. Okay? None of this is news. The first thing is you got age pressures, right? So you turn 23, you turn 21, and your parents are telling you, why aren't you married? What's wrong with you? You're a failure in life. You could have finished college and got your master's degree before you turn 20. And your parents are telling you you're a failure, you're a failure, and all that stuff because you're not married or you don't have 3 babies. So the first thing is that there's a lot of age pressure, right? It's really complicated. And actually, you go on Facebook right now, half of your friends are having babies, right? And the other half are getting engaged, and the third half their kids are getting married, and they're only 25. Another thing is that we have a lot of, internally within the Coptic culture, we have a lot of unclarity on what dating is, right? Like, what is dating? Do we call it dating or courtship? Which book do you read to define it? Like, do you read I Kiss Dating Goodbye? Do you read Boy Meets Girl? Which book do you read, right? I remember one of my friends was telling me, he goes up to some of his, non-Egyptian friends, and he's trying to explain, he's just trying to introduce the person he's about to get engaged to, right? He's not engaged yet. So he goes up to them and he's like, oh yeah, this is my friend, this is my courtship partner. Right? And this is my courtship partner, right? So what do you say? We don't even know what to say. And sometimes you feel wrong for messing up and you said the wrong thing, you don't even know you're supposed to be dating. So we have no idea what we're talking about when we talk about this, right? Until the end of this talk. And then cultural confusion on how dating works, right? Like, how does this stuff actually work? Like, what happens? What are the steps? What are the stages, right? What's the right thing to do? What's the wrong thing to do? What are things to watch out for, right? So, and I'll tell you something else that's really interesting, which is, I was just sitting last week with some of us, right? We went out to the pizzeria, and we were gonna get yummy food, of course. And we went, just we're being recorded, I gotta say, so, like these things. So we went out to get something to eat, and we're talking, and I'm sitting down, and I have a couple that has a lot more Egyptian influence than American influence. I have people to my left who have more Armenian and American influence than Egyptian or American influence. And then me, I was born and raised in America, right? But from an Egyptian family. So everybody has their own way. You come, your parents are telling you they want to set you up. You don't want to do anything your parents want you to do, and all these things, right? So even we kind of don't know, like, We don't know. We're in a transition generation where half the people are straight from Egypt, half the people are born here. Who knows what's going on? That's another problem. Another problem is misconceptions, right? So we have false ideas. We have false ideas, thinking that dating, attraction, and sexuality are immoral. Some people think like it's wrong to be attracted to someone, right? If you think a girl is attractive, are you sinning for thinking she's attractive, right? If you think a guy is attractive, is that wrong, right? Or how about if you have sexual desires, is that wrong? So sometimes we grow up and we were taught to hate our sexual desires, to like, you know, like as if it's a great sin just to have sexual desires, right? Not to lust after someone, but just to even want sexual intimacy. You think that that's wrong, right? That's a major problem. I'll tell you an example. There's lots and lots of examples. I love examples, right? Because there are crazy things that happen in relationships, guys, and that's the last one before the second to last one. So, or after the second to last one. Obviously, it's the last one. So, there's a couple, a married couple, right? The Bishop Mbapola is talking about this, and we're going to talk about whether we're talking about marriage or dating. We're talking about dating, not marriage, right? But to show you how it could lead up to really mess up your life, right? So, for some reason, every time this husband and wife are going to be sexually intimate, right? The wife goes into the room before and takes all the pictures of saints and turns them face down. Because she doesn't want the saints to see them having sex. Right? So what does that mean? Does that mean that sex is a sin? God commanded Adam and Eve to have sex. He said, be fruitful and multiply. Right? But sometimes when we think of our own sexuality, we're very uncomfortable. Right? We're like, I can't think about this. What the heck is wrong with me? Silly, right? And I have a devil or something, right? You can't do that, right? So we gotta figure that out. We got some really weird misconceptions. Another dating problem is lack of boundaries, right? Lack of boundaries. So even partners, they don't have physical boundaries. Like two dating partners, a guy and a girl, they don't have physical boundaries. They don't understand that there's a time for everything, and it's not the time to be having sex unless you're married. And that's not the point. I don't want to keep talking about sex. It's not the point, but it's a very important part of it. Another one is between partners and others, like parents who are too involved. Abu Antonius once gave us a funny marriage example. There's a couple that was married, and the wife and the husband came to live in America, and the husband goes out to work and the wife is home, and then the husband comes back from a day of work, and all during the day the wife is on Skype with her mom in Egypt, right? So her husband comes home and she just says, "Mom, just 1 second," right? Her husband's working and he comes back home. She opens the door. She's like, "Hey, honey," and then he goes and then she just leaves him and goes back to Skype with the mom, right? Like she's not caring for her husband at all. Another example, a very modern couple around our age, right? The wife could not get her mom in her proper place in her life before marriage, right? And right now, if you ask the husband or the wife, the mom is destroying their marriage, right? She tells her what to do. She tells her what time she should do things with her husband. All these things. They're married. She's supposed to say, forsake your people and your father's home, right? But she didn't resolve that issue before she got married, right? So now she's suffering and her husband's suffering. And probably all the resentment that's going to build over the first few years in their marriage, because the first few years are very important, and resentment happens for unresolved issues over time. So now their kids are going to suffer because they're going to be so upset at each other, okay? So that's a dating problem we're facing today. Last one is, I'll tell you something, guys, very simply. The majority, and I'm sorry to say this is why we're talking about this, and we're not talking about marriage, but dating leads up to marriage, right? So the majority of marriages are messed up today, period, full stop, right? You might think it's so easy to get married, right? All you gotta do is just go up there and do the little crowns thing. The Holy Spirit is gonna obey what he told his priests to do, right? The Holy Spirit will unite you, but your marriage will be very far from what God intended for marriage, right? And I'll tell you guys, everything looks great on the outside, but in these homes there are people crying all the time. Just because you're young and you got married doesn't mean you were ready for marriage, right? And a lot of these things are built up over time. We need to unlearn a lot of things. We need to do things the right way, right? And then while we're dating, we need to do things the right way. And then when we get married, we need to still keep working. It's a lot of work. It's continuous, right? It takes a lifetime, right? But we want to catch some things that are messed up. Any questions? Thank you, God. This is great. All right, you guys are so excited. Is it too hot? It's always too hot. One day we'll fix the heat. Before we get started, a few words. Number one is I don't have all the answers, right? This stuff is complicated. Everybody's different. Every relationship is different. We're giving some general things, but honestly, I'll tell you in the end what it all comes down to before we get into all the details, right? But I don't have all the answers. Number two is what we will discuss will challenge your thoughts about yourself, your current relationship status, and about dating. So if you're challenged, if you're having a hard time, we're doing the right thing, right? Keep going at it. Don't. Some people, whenever they see a challenge, they run the other way. You're never going to get anywhere in life. All right. So number three is that I'm not telling you how to get married. I'm telling you how to date, right? Marriage, we talk about it all the time, right? But right now, we're very focused on dating, okay? And we're going to talk about exactly what dating is, right? But we're talking about dating. We're not talking about marriage, okay? Lastly, there are thousands upon thousands of variations of dating issues and successes and failures. These are just general principles, what we're going to talk about today, because today we're talking about principles. But in the end, it all comes down to three things. Just to simplify it before we get into the details. Number one, it's your team, right? We're going to talk about that one of the things is that dating is a community thing, right? You cannot date in isolation. You cannot have a relationship and just go out and have that relationship. Nobody knows anything about it. You never ask for advice. You never have anybody else helping you with it, right? You need your team. Both partners need their own teams, not just your combined team, but you need a separate team. You need people to tell you, hey, bro, don't you remember? It's so interesting that you're telling me that you don't like when your girlfriend does this or when your fiance does this, right? Actually, you've been repeating that for the last 3 relationships you were in. Maybe the problem isn't the people you're going out with. Maybe the problem is you, right? You need people who can see that and tell you these things, right? You need someone who has experience, right? You need someone who has experience. You need people who are not as emotionally involved as you are, right? And you need people who are in it for you, right? So you need people who want to defend you and make sure you get the best. Because sometimes we, in relationships, if we grew up with our parents putting us down all the time, we're going to enter into a relationship with this sense of inferiority. This is one example, right? So maybe you might not think that you deserve to be treated well, right? So you won't even expect to be treated well by your partner. So you need someone who's in it for you and who sees you and says, hey dude, you should be treated better than that. That guy shouldn't talk to you like that. I don't care how much money he makes, right? Or this girl shouldn't be making you do all these things no matter what, right? You guys get what I'm saying? You guys with me? You need people, you need a team. So it all comes down to God, a priest, trusted friends, maybe your parents and yourself, right? Most likely your parents should be involved too, but of course there's exceptions. And trusted friends, not these crazy, friends who just want someone else to talk about and so they can keep ignoring their own lives, right? You need number 2 is your internal monitor, right? You need to check yourself, right? You need to be self-aware, and we'll get to that in the last principle today. That your feelings and your thoughts and your guts, right? You need to say, how am I feeling, right? You need to know that, right? Do I like when he talks to me this way? Do I like when he says this? Do I like going out here, right? Do I like when he asks me this? Do I like when she complains this way? Do I like when he does this? You have to ask yourself, right? Or how come I'm so upset right now? Sometimes we have these emotions and we have no idea why we have them, right? Girls are so good at this, right? But guys are too. So, we have these emotions, we have no idea. I'm so upset, I have no idea why, but I'm just really upset at this guy that's going out with me, right? I'm just upset. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to talk to somebody, I'm going to text somebody in caps, and I'm not going to put any smiley faces, right? That's what we do, right? We're so upset. So, we got to check ourselves. And number 3, it comes down to courage, because when we get to the third talk, we need to find out why are guys not willing to step up and just ask a girl out, right? We need to talk about that, right? And why are girls so closed off, right? Walking around like this, oh, that guy's interested in me. He's ugly, I hate him. Oh, that guy's interested in me. I don't like him either, right? And just walking around, nobody, hey, how are you? Nice person. Oh, don't talk to me, you're not a deacon, right? Or whatever. Right? We gotta find out what's going on. Okay? So we need people to take part, and we need to be open, right? Guys, we enter dating, we enter into we enter, this stuff happens, I promise, but not like that. That's really weird. It's weird. So, you also need to be open to other options, right? What do you have in mind? We're going to talk about this, I think, in the second principle. What do you have in mind is the person you want to end up with, right? What if somebody has only like maybe 99%, not 100% of that stuff? Are you willing to talk to them? What if they have 97%? What about 80%? Right? We need to be open to different people, right? Actually, a lot of times you find couples nowadays, and I'm not trying to say we should have this rule that says opposites attract. That's kind of dumb in some ways. But sometimes you find people who are in relationships and they are so different from what they originally wanted, right? They grew up in very different families, but you find that God, through the differences in diversity, and of course the common faith, of course, but through these differences, He really strengthens the relationship, right? He really helps them each to grow and stretches them, right? So we need to be open to other options and not just focus on some very limited, narrow-minded things, but we'll talk about that. Any questions before one last thing before we start? Are you guys all right? You with me? No? Anybody bored? All right. Okay. You gotta give me feedback, guys. You gotta adapt. All right. One more thing before we get started. Everyone here is different, okay? Because we're gonna say over the next few weeks some very general things, but everyone here is different. Some of the differences are your stage of life and development, right? Because we're at different ages here, different ages and different identities. You might find a young woman who's 21 years old who's more mature than a 35-year-old man. This happens, right? So we gotta know that this stuff is different. It applies differently to each of us, right? Past experiences, right? What was your family life like? How did your father treat your mother, right? What was dating like for your older sibling, if you have an older sibling, right? All these things, and these things are very important. Also, romantic relationship. Are you married now? Are you in a relationship? Did you recently break up? Are you just getting started, right? Or are you having lots of trouble? You're frustrated, right? Because you've been trying for so long and nothing's working out, right? So these things are different for every person. Maybe you're divorced. So take what fits your place in life now, and keep the rest as knowledge for the future and or for someone else. Okay? This stuff is all useful, right? Maybe you won't use it for yourself right now, maybe use it later, or maybe you'll be able to help someone else, right? All right. The series is going to be what is dating and the 4 dating principles. Number 2 is the 5 dating truths. And number 3 is dating mechanics, 6 tips to help you along the way. And then the 4th one will we're working on something cool. I can't talk about it because I don't know what it is yet. No, I do know, but I can't say. All right. Now, what is dating? What is dating? So this is the first part, right? What is dating? There are so many different terms for what dating actually means when we use the word dating. Some people say, hey, we're dating, right? So we're going out on a date, but we're not dating, right? Same word, right? You could be going out on a date, but you're not dating. You just ask someone out for coffee or for dinner. You're out on a date, but you're not dating yet, right? We're not dating, we're courting, right? We got this whole other definition we learned it from wherever. She's my courtship partner. I told you about that one. I'm seeing someone, right? Yeah, we're seeing each other, right? We're talking. We're getting to know each other. And you can ask someone, are you dating again? Like if you want to know if somebody's like, was off the market and they're back on the market, you say, are you dating again? It doesn't mean they're actually in a relationship, but they're dating again. So, what? Nobody knows what that means, right? I have no idea what it means. So, it's confusing, right? And this paper fell. Wait. So, all of these terms can refer to a few things, right? It's the same words, same ideas. All of these terms can refer to the different stages in a relationship, right? Like you went out on a date, that means but you're not dating, so you're kind of very early on, right? It could refer to different levels of commitment. So if you're very committed, you can say we're seeing each other. Who knows? I'm not trying to give you what the right term is. I'm just trying to tell you right now it's confusing. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's different understandings of dating. Sometimes we have different understandings. It's so funny that when there isn't enough communication, you find that sometimes the girl or the guy thinks they're much more involved, much more committed than they actually are, because there isn't enough communication, right? Okay, so during this series, because there is no standard definition in the whole world, I just want to give you a definition to work with, right? So during this series, dating refers to there you go. Dating refers to, let me put this paper down. Being on the market, right? So you're out there you're looking, you're not in a relationship. Dating refers to that, right? And this is during this series, right? It refers to getting to know someone. If you're getting to know someone, you met someone, you're getting to know someone, we're putting that under the umbrella for the series, right? If you've been in an exclusive relationship for a few years, we're also talking about that. If you're getting engaged or if you are engaged, we're talking about that too, right? Going on a retreat to meet people, spending, or your fear, and this one we'll talk about this I think on the very last week. Spending lots of time with a friend of the opposite sex that you're interested in, we're putting that in there too, right? So it doesn't mean that all of the above are dating per se. Like this word, when people use it, it doesn't always mean all these things. But all of these relationship types and stages fall under the dating umbrella during this series. Any questions? Yes?
So I don't know if you're going to get into this, but is it dating?
Yeah. So especially is a date, is going out on a date? Are you dating, right? So are you dating the person because you went out on a date with them? I'll tell you in common words, like when we talk about it, no, not necessarily, right? You can go out on a date with someone, but you're not dating them yet, right?
But is there, because you kind of inferred almost that there's this conception of, if I go out on a date with someone, that there's something.
No. All I'm saying is that what I'm saying for this series is called, for this series, I say dating done right. That word dating refer to so many different stages and levels of commitment and so many things, right? But the confusion is there, right? The question is very valid because we don't even know what we're talking about when we say dating. We don't know. It's very vague, right? So we need a lot of education to help us clarify what state we're in, and internally and externally in the relationship in the world, right? We need education. Sam.
Can I say what is dating in my opinion and correct me if it's wrong?
Do you want to vote?
I'm going to try to put all of this together. Because I really don't want people to understand something wrong from what we are doing now.
Okay, sure.
I think dating in our understanding is concentrating on going out or knowing a specific person for the purpose of marriage.
Okay, Mark?
I'm going to disagree.
Okay.
There's no, marriage is not even in the vocabulary.
So you're dating without marriage.
Nobody wants to talk that, not ever.
So you go out with a girl not for marriage purpose.
I don't know if she's crazy, I don't even know yet.
I'm telling you, you go out with her.
Okay.
But you go out with her for the purpose of
I have an
marriage.
idea.
If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it
I
doesn't
think
work.
what Samir's saying is it's not just recreational.
Yes,
It's not just
exactly.
You're getting to know someone, and maybe or maybe it doesn't lead to marriage, but that's not your number one. Like you're not going out with this
Yeah.
person saying I want to get married to this person.
Yeah, and 17 and 16 years old.
You're exploring. You're
There's a
exploring.
curiosity.
Sure.
You're following the curiosity.
Right.
You're not sizing up rings on your way.
I did not say that you're gonna marry this girl. But I'm saying that the goal exactly, because I wanna exclude the idea of recreational, that 17 and 16 years old boy and girl going out and we are dating and the church is okay with that. No, the church is not okay with that because that's not gonna have marriage in purpose. That's recreation.
Definitely.
Maybe if you explain being on the market can help us to understand what kind of dating we're talking about.
Yeah. So being on the market, okay, the thing is, there's so many details that I didn't want to give this to right in the beginning because there's so many different things. But being on the, you see, there's just so many details. But for you to pursue this, you need to be in a state of readiness to begin dating, right? This area of your life called dating, right? You need to be in a state of readiness to do this whole process, right? And we're going to get into a few things, right? Like, number one, are you emotionally healthy? For example, I'll give you some examples. This might be easier to answer. If you're a young lady and you had a really bad relationship with your father, right? And you're going to start dating. If you haven't resolved these issues emotionally, you'll be looking for a father in the person you're gonna marry, right? And the person you're gonna date, right? So are you ready to be dating until you resolve this issue? You need to at least start resolving it before you start looking for someone who's gonna dominate your life, right? If you're a young man and you've never done anything on your own. Your mother does your laundry. You don't even know what having a job means. You've never managed more than $20 or your allowance, right? Are you ready to start taking a girl out, right? You can't even spell independence, right? So are you ready, right? So for you to date, you have to be in a state of readiness. For you to even say I'm on the market, first of all, figure out who the I is, right? So we have some details of how we can look at this, right? But
this is what Salim was trying to say.
Yeah.
When you're ready to pursue this project, the bigger project, which is marriage, then when you know that you're ready, then you can be on the market, then you can go through that, and the church will understand this, because there is some limitation. This is very important. That people will say, oh, we talked about it and it's no problem, we can date anyone, anytime, anything. It's not like that. There are rules and regulations for a guy and a lady to start dating. And they have to have these things clear to themselves. As you said, they figure it themselves first, which is, we call it in psychoanalytical development, reaching the stage of identity. Knowing first who you are, where you're going, what you want in life, so that you'll be able to figure out the person you want to choose. If you don't know who you are, you're not going to be able to know who is the person you're going to get married to, because that process is leading to that. It should be. But if you mention marriage and people run away from it, then there's something wrong done in this dating.
That's what I wanted to say.
it was really beautiful, honestly. So
I was trying to say what they're saying.
So what I want you guys to do is, like, you see, Abuna and Dr. Samir are speaking from a place of experience with many couples and from their own lives, right? So that's why you need to have people like this, as we said before, that you need to have a team that takes on this project with you, right? To look at the relationship, to look at you, to look at the other person from a different perspective, right? And we're going to get to that. That's a part of what's one of the truths, right? You need to have a team. But what I'm trying to say here is that when I say the word dating, I'm referring to a lot of things, right? All that stuff. And I'll give you a working definition, is that dating is a period of getting to know someone and then figuring out what you want to do with what you discover about each other, right? And I'm not saying that, and I'm going to get to the next slide where we talk about what the twofold purpose of dating is, right? So let's just look at this, and I'm going to get to the next slide, and then I'll tell you what we want to focus on, right? So again, it's a period of getting to know someone and then figuring out what you want to do with what you discover about each other, right? All right, the twofold purpose of dating. The first one is finding a spouse. Clear? Good?
That's what I said.
That's it, and that's, you read the slides ahead of time. So, finding a spouse is one of those purposes, right? The other purpose is learning about yourself, right? I'm going to be in a relationship, and I'm going to say things, and then the person's going to respond to me, right? I need to say, wow, that person responded to me in a very interesting way. I never knew I liked that type of response. Wow, that person listened. You guys can't do that. Well, I'll talk on top. Yeah. So unless you raise your hand when I call. So you can't. You have an interaction with someone. You say, "Wow, I never realized that I like when this person listens this way," or "I hate when he does that. I'm so upset right now when he did that." Right? So you're learning something about yourself that you never knew before. When you're in any relationship, not just are you learning about another person, but you're learning about yourself, right? And if you're not aware that while you're dating someone, that you need to be learning about yourself, you're missing the whole benefit. You're going to enter marriage not knowing anything. You need to know who you are, right? So, I'm not saying that these are separate, but these are distinct. They're distinct. That means they're different. They're not separate, right? If you are in no way working towards being ready to get married, you really need to stop all this, right? Dating is not about playing games. It's real life, and it's another person's life, okay? So I'm gonna say this in the beginning, even though we have a whole thing called don't play games, right? Because there's a lot of games that we play, right? But don't string along anywhere, right? If you're not sure about what you want, don't play with people's hearts. All right. Some examples of things you're gonna learn about yourself, right? Wow, we're moving kind of fast, which was good. You're gonna learn what's on your list, right? You're gonna say, wow, that's really cool. So you're gonna learn what's on your list. You're gonna learn what's not on your list of things that you're looking for, right? You're gonna learn if you have premature emotional attachment. Some people, they get into relationships and within 3 weeks they're in love, right? They've never had this type of experience before. It's so big and so powerful, and their emotions are all over the place, right? And now they can't, huh?
First sight.
Yeah, it's like love at first sight, and really you just chatted on Facebook. You can see it. So all that stuff, your emotions are upside down, right? Knowing what's out there. Sometimes you grew up in a very small community or one community. You never realize, wow, I went on a retreat and I saw hundreds of different types of people, right? I never knew all this stuff was possible. It's a whole new world, right? So this is something you're gonna learn. It's like what happens when you get to work. Sometimes you go to work and you're forced to be in situations and you say, wow, I have to exercise different skills. I have to assert myself in a different way. So you're learning a lot of things, right? Communication skills, right? You get into your first fight with the person you're going out with, right? Your first fight. Where should we go out to eat, right? No, I don't want to have sushi. I want to have this, but I'm allergic to sushi. I don't care. So you have to learn communication skills, right? This is something you're not going to learn communication skills only by reading them in a book, right? You're going to learn them when you have these situations, right? Discomfort with the opposite sex. Some guys, they're so confident around other guys. You put them in front of a girl that has feelings and can think, they're not gonna know what they're doing, right? They're always gonna be uncomfortable. They're gonna be insecure. She's asking me all these questions about my feelings, and she's telling me about her day, and she doesn't want me to give a solution. It's crazy, right? Discomfort the opposite sex. You're gonna learn what your own philosophies about marriage and relationships are. Sometimes you don't even know what your own beliefs are about marriage and relationships, right? But you're gonna learn that when you start to go through this experience in a healthy way, right? And back to this, like, what's the role of a man? What's the role of a woman in a relationship, right? Sometimes we don't ask ourselves these questions until you find all of a sudden you're telling someone to do something, right? And you're like, wow, I never realized that I'm doing this, right? That this is what I think she should be doing or he should be doing, right? You're not going to know that. Experiences. Maybe you didn't know that you liked opera, right? And the guy took you out to an opera, right? And you're like, wow, this is awesome, right? I never knew I liked that. So you're going to learn that about yourself, right? And your fears. What are you afraid of? There's some of us, we enter relationships with so many little fears. We're afraid of being insulted. We're afraid of somebody telling us we're not attractive. We're insecure about our toenails. You know, whatever, right? So, the following principles will help you accomplish one or both of these outcomes, okay? Are you ready for the principles, guys? Is this enough build up for the principles? All right. Principle number 1. There's 4 principles. All right? The first principle, and by the way, guys, we might finish 10 minutes late because just there's a lot of material, right? The first one is God does his part and you do yours. God does his part and you do yours, right? This is really important because both you and God have an active role in your relationships. Both. Let's look at this separately. What happens if only you do your part and God doesn't do his part? What happens, right? You come in and out of relationships or the same relationship, right? Just a cycle, a very bad, negative, unhealthy cycle. You keep getting hurt. After every relationship, you're just hurt. While you're in the same relationship, you keep getting hurt over and over again. And there's no resolution in sight. You give too much, right? You don't have a feeling that this relationship should be balanced, right? So you just keep giving, and you don't receive anything, right? Or you never grow. I want you to know, guys, whether an engagement or a dating relationship works out or not, if it's healthy, you should grow from it. No matter what happens in the end, you should grow from it, right? If you're not growing, if it's destructive, you know that God is not doing his part, right? And then you need to check with your team. You need to look inside yourself, right? what happens if only God does his part? Because this is another option, right? What if I do nothing, right? You wait at home. You just wait, right? I remember I was reading one of these books to prepare, and the author said, unless you want to get married to the FedEx guy or a Jehovah's Witness, you need to get out of your house, right? You need to get out and do something, right? So the problem is, I remember, and one of my friends said something. He's like, what do you think is going to happen? Some guy's going to knock on the door and say, hey, God sent me. You think it's going to happen? No, you need to get out and do stuff, right? Go out, leave your home. You know, you can't stay home all the time and just, you know, visit YouTube videos and just wish you were recorded in one of them or something, or whatever people do when they stay at home all the time. I don't know. And then, or you hang out with the same people over and over again, right? You're just gonna, why do you think when you hang out with the same 5 girls that some guy's gonna meet you? How? I'm gonna get to that, don't worry, don't worry. Man. All right, so this is if only God does his part, right? You need to be proactive and take initiative in your own life. It's your life, guys, right? You keep complaining about everyone and everything else. There's no good guys out there. Everybody's messed up. Nobody understands that I'm the best person. I'm a gem. I'm a Jew. Look at my hair. I'm beautiful. What? I mean, it's true when it applies to me, but I mean, I don't know the rest of it. But, so you keep complaining about everybody else, and you don't realize that you have a part in this too. Maybe you have to figure out some issues, dude. You know, maybe you got to work on something. And you blame God. God, why aren't you giving me someone, right? I've been serving you for the last 20 gajillion years. What's going on, God? Why didn't you give me someone yet, right? All right. Let me give you a verse here from Philippians. It says, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even the death of the cross. Who did this? Who did this? Christ. Jesus Christ did this, right? This is God doing his part, right? What's your part? Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. You have a part too, right? You have to receive the grace of God. You have to take advantage of the opportunities that God gave you. God gave you friends. You could ask your friends, hey, does my hair look nice, right? What do I look like? Do people like me? Are my jokes funny, right? What if you ask your trusted friends these questions, right? You know, what if nothing is working out for you? Why don't you ask someone, right? Do your part. Read a book. Go to a different retreat. Do something, right? All right. But God will do his part and you do yours. Are we good? Principle number 1, done. We're going to go to the next one. All right.
That's why we have a lot of activities this summer.
Sam, stop. Making everything all awkward now, you know? No. So yeah, go to all the activities. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm afraid that we might understand this social level only. That would be very frightening. It should be understood on that spiritual level. In my relationship with God first. Because if I want to do something right, I'm not going to be able to do it right unless I set myself right with God first. That's what this implies. This verse we put down there, that's what it implies. That myself and Christ are working in harmony together. So that he would lead me and teach me and show me the way to do the right thing in the right time. Our problem, sometimes we think that doing my part is just get out of the house and it's first of all that I have to build the tribe of God so that I can move on in the right direction.
And that's why God is one of the people on your team. And you can't be in disharmony with your own team, right? For example, if you've never I remember one time I sat with a priest because one of my friends told me about a relationship that really got messed up, right? And she said to me, she said, Makar, but I spoke to Abuna, you know, and Abuna told me that everything was okay. We went to visit him, right? And I said, really? I don't think Abuna would have said that this relationship was okay. It sounds really crazy, right? I said, is it okay if I go ask Abuna? She said, yeah. So I went and I spoke to the priest, and the priest said to me, Makar, this couple visited me only one time at the beginning of the relationship, right? What do you expect the priest to do? If you expect him to chase after you and find you and say, hey, how's your relationship going now? What was the last thing you thought about? What was this, right? Tell me how you're feeling. What about your relationship with God, right? Right? You need to have your team active, right? And God is on your team. You cannot be against your own team. Your social life is messed up. Your spiritual life is messed up. Your relationship with God is messed up. And somehow, for some reason, this one thing your dating partner's relationship with them is going to be fine. You can't do that, right? You can't do it. You got to have a balanced, healthy life, right? So, principle number 2. You guys ready? All right. At least the air conditioner is working. Psych. All right. So. Principle number 2. I can't believe I say psych. I'm so old, right? I don't care. So, doing the same thing will never result in something different. Doing the same thing will never result in something different. Okay? Now, let's talk about some examples here. What I want to show you in the next, 3.5 seconds is some actions that result and what your conclusion is. People doing the same action over and over again. Okay? Now, my favorite, right? You go on a retreat, you set up your fortress, you hang out, and then you go home. Does anybody know what the fortress is? Huh?
Group of friends.
Yeah, it's that same group of friends, right? Girls are amazing at this, right? They go to a retreat, they hang out with the same 3-4 girls. Hey, do you want to go to the bathroom together? Hey, do you want to look at this wall together? Hey, do you want to hey, let's go and talk to that priest together, right? Let's confess together, right? So I'm like, what confidence does one man have to approach 5 girls so he can talk to the one that he's interested in? This guy has to be a public speaker, right? He has to come up, he has to go up to 5 girls, and he has to say, hey girls, what's up? In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, I want to talk to you all about something, and somehow pray to God that they all get distracted except the one he's interested in, so he can have a conversation with them. How's he going to do that, right? Or what's going to end up happening is the guy is going to say, guys, look, there's a group of 5. The priests know that this happens all the time, right? There's a group of 5 girls, hanging out at the retreat. I'm interested in one of them. Hey, 4 friends that I just made yesterday. Can you guys hook me up? Please, I need to, all 5 of us go talk to them. You take this one, so I can talk to that one, right? What are you going to do?
Solve 5 problems.
Huh?
You solve 5 problems.
No. Sam, right? So, you know what I'm saying? So, what is the guy going to have to do? He has to find her when she, forgot to get her sweatshirt from her room and just ran to go get it. He has to, intercept her and find her and start a conversation, So, this is what we do. Sometimes we do all the time, right? So,
But the boys do the same thing, by the way.
no, that's fine, but then they shouldn't be doing that. I'm trying to say nobody should do that. Yeah. So the result is no one asks you out, right? No one asks you out. I've been through this, right? No one asks you out. What's the conclusion? Retreats don't work, right? The retreats don't work, right? But what did you expect was going to happen, right? You know what I'm saying? That's doing the same thing will never result in something different. I was talking to one girl. I'm like, hey, what's going on? She started explaining all this stuff. And I'm like, and then she started complaining that her other friend, doesn't want to leave her alone on a retreat, right? She doesn't want to leave her alone. So it's a problem for both of them, right? She's too attached. She's afraid to be out by herself. Maybe she's afraid of getting the attention of guys. Maybe she's afraid of being attractive, right? Girls can feel that sometimes. Guys can feel it too. All right, the next one. You start seeing someone, a few weeks later, you're mothering him, right? I'm sorry I'm picking on the girls right now. We'll get to the guys, don't worry. We got a lot of stuff for the guys, right? A few weeks later, you're mothering him, right? 2 weeks into it, you're doing his laundry, you're picking him up and taking him to work, you're helping him study, you're doing his paper for him, right? And then what happens? He starts taking advantage of you, you're unfulfilled, and then he breaks up with you, right? So guys, listen. Girls, you need to have the guy also take care of you as well. You need to see, is this person, are we going to be able to minister to each other's needs? Or is this guy just looking for another mother? Or is he looking for another servant that's not going to get paid, right? Or they're just going to live at the house. So this is something else. So what's the conclusion? I gave him everything, men are jerks, right? That's doing doing the same thing will never result in something different. You got to change this behavior up here, right? Number 3, this is very common, guys. It's almost common. You're attracted to a girl at church, but you've never spoken to her before. You go up to her and ask her out. Well, why? What? Wait. Who are you? What's your name? Where are you? Where'd you come from? Right? Like, you can't just go up to a girl and just ask her out, right? You can't do that. She doesn't know who you are. Girls have something. You know what it's called? Feelings, right? You gotta warm them up, right? You gotta have a conversation. Get to know her, right? What is your goal? Just to get her out and to go to dinner? Is that it? Mission accomplished because she said yes to go out for coffee? No, you gotta get to know who she is. And guess what, guys? She might have to learn something about you too, right? Maybe. So you gotta have a few conversations before you just go to ask her out, right? And by the way, we need to be more brave and ask girls out. Don't worry, we'll get to that later. But cool. And then you get rejected, right? So you ask her out, you get rejected because she doesn't even know your name. She sees the fake name you put on Facebook because you asked her out through Facebook messages. And of course, that's not going to work either. And then you say, these girls have no idea who's talking to them, right? Like, who does this girl think she is? Does she have any idea who I am, right? I should ask her out. I just look her direction and she goes out with me, right? That applies to me. No, just kidding. All right. Now, last one is a little bit more serious, right? Is you're dating someone, 3 months later you're making out and having sex, right? Some people think that this is normal in relationships, right? Now, yeah, after you're a little bit more committed, to show that you're more committed, you should have sex. You should get really physical, right? You don't know it, but you're too invested to get out, right? You've given him something, you've given him your body, or you've given her something of yourself as well. And you think, at the end, you think you're spoiled goods. I'm worth nothing, right? I gave this person something of myself, I gave them my body, and now the relationship didn't work out. Now I'm spoiled for the rest of my life, right? We're going to talk about this, by the way, I think on the next talk, which is get physical, get hurt, right? So we have to be very careful, guys, how we move in the physical stages, just physically in the relationship, right? I'm not saying that any physical contact at all is wrong, right? That's not what I'm saying. But we have to make sure that everything is moving and in parallel and in the right sequence and at the right time, right? You can't just go right into it, right? Is that cool, guys?
يعني احنا ساكتين يعني.
What you want to say a lot more, right? What do you want?
Very dangerous if you work in a relationship based on physical attraction only. It's disaster. You're heading towards disaster.
Yeah, guys, there has to be, we're going to talk about different, there has to be a balance in all the aspects of what you're going to get in the person, right? Being physically attractive might be what gets a guy to go talk to a girl, or a girl to be open to a guy, right? But it should not be limited to that. I hope that's clear. So, if you're doing the same thing, and you're hoping it's going to result in something different, which is not going to happen because the principle says the opposite. The verse says for the prodigal son, he came to himself, he arose and came to his father. Very simply, if you're doing the same thing, you need to change that thing. I know it sounds so simple, but it's so hard. You need to change, right? You need to go on a retreat and start hanging out with new people, have new conversations, whatever. We'll get to that at the third talk. Oh, any questions? It's really hot, right? It's exhausting, right? Any questions? Are you guys bored? Is this relevant? Yeah? 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 All right, okay. Principle number 3, don't forget there's only 4. So, this one's very important. Everything that happens outside has at its root something on the inside. Everything that happens on the outside has at its root something on the inside. And I'll give you just a very simple verse. Proverbs, Solomon, the wisest man ever. He says, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it, out of your heart, spring the issues of life. So when I'm in a relationship and I find myself behaving a certain way, if I find that I got into a confrontation with the person I'm going out with, and all of a sudden I shut down, I don't want to have any conversation, I give them the silent treatment, right? I have to look inside and see why I'm doing that, right? Things on the inside are the root of what's happening on the outside. And I'll give you some examples. Some of them are a little sensitive. outside. So something that's happening on the outside, that's actually happening on the inside. When I get close, these are things that people have said, right? Real human beings like us. When I get close, I get disinterested or afraid. You're afraid of being intimate, right? You're afraid of intimacy. You're afraid of somebody actually learning something about you. Some people, they're so shielded, so guarded, right? Or they're so insecure about their past. They don't want anybody to get anything to know about them, right? So when somebody starts getting close, the relationship starts moving, it's over. They cut it out, right? Number 2, I begin to feel smothered or closed in. When they like me, I lose interest, right? So sometimes a girl can say that, right? So you're afraid of being controlled, right? Maybe you're afraid that for some reason anybody that's ever cared about you, and we have a ton of this in Egyptian culture, I'm sorry, I'm Egyptian too. So, but sometimes somebody likes you, and because they like you so much and they care about you so much, they want to control you. They want to control what's happening in your life, right? And you're afraid of that. So what you do is you start like, we're getting too close. I can't do this, right? I want to break out, right? Guys can feel this too. Guys, by the way, in the difference between guys and girls, guys have a thing where they need to cycle back and forth between intimacy, right? They can't always be very intimate all the time, always sharing feelings, always talking about what's going on. They need time alone, right? They need to be in their nothingness, right? And girls, they're the exact opposite, right? Whenever they get closer or feel stronger, they want to get even closer and learn more about each other. Whenever there's a problem, they want to talk about it right away, no matter what, right? They don't care about a solution, they just want to relate, right? But guys sometimes need time alone, right? And if we don't have that balance, this could be happening. Number 3, I feel as if I'm not attractive enough to get someone to like me. Or if she knows that about me, she would never like me. Sometimes we're afraid of our imperfections and flaws, and we don't have self-acceptance. Guys, listen. Jesus Christ, and we'll talk about this when we talk about, falling into sexual sin and all these things, right? You should know this from Demas, the right-hand thief, right? In the last few hours of his life, he went from hell to heaven, right? In the last few hours of his life, right? Jesus Christ can turn a harlot into a virgin, right? So you need to understand and you need to accept that your past is a part of who you are, right? And that the person who's going to be entering into a relationship with you is not just entering into a relationship with what they see on the surface and what you're doing now. They're entering into a relationship with a human being that has a past, right? And your past is a part of who you are, and God can make all things new, right? But still, your past is a part of who you are. So if God accepted your repentance, why would you be insecure about someone else accepting you, right? You're worth being accepted, and I want you to know that, right? So don't feel so insecure, and don't settle for less than what you should get, right? Don't settle for less. You have to know that God accepted you the way you are, right? Of course, we're always improving and we're trying to get better, but there's no reason to feel so insecure about who you are and because you fell into sin in the past. God can fix all sins, right? Is that clear?
Forgive yourself.
Forgive yourself, yeah. Yeah, you'd be surprised that God can forgive you before you forgive yourself. Sometimes we are harder on ourselves than God is on us, right? It's really, really sad. And we just go in and out of these very low relationships that are not going anywhere because we feel like we're not worth it, right? We feel like we're nothing, right? But you have to understand that you're worth something, right? The last 2, when attracted to someone, you say, I shouldn't feel that way. I remember one time, I was in another state, and someone I know, she showed me her phone, showed me her cell phone. She had just gotten a text message from someone who asked her out, right? He said, hey, I just bought tickets to a play or something. Do you want to go out with me, right? Something, I don't know what he said. Whatever, that's not that smooth. They're married now, but it works. It works for them. But. So, she said, ew, he asked me out? He wants to go out on a date? Ew, right? That's what she said. And then I said, what's the problem? He's interested in you, right? But she feels so weird. She's not used to being attracted to someone, right? So some girls, they have this feeling that he likes me. What's wrong? What's wrong with me? Is everything all right? So, and some people, and some girls, you tell them, because when we get to the tips, one of them, which is very, very, very sensitive, right? is look in the mirror, right? We have to be faithful to the looks that God gave us, right? And I don't want to start stealing other people's thunder here, right? But you have to do your best with what God gave you, right? Do your best. I'm not saying you have to look like the people in the magazines, because they don't even look like that. The computers made them look like that, right? But you have to do your best, right? If your friend tells you, hey, I like your hair that way, maybe it's nice to put your hair that way. Maybe, maybe like once in a while you should do that, right? But sometimes girls don't feel like they should be attracted. They think it's wrong, right? All right, so you're afraid of your sexuality. All right, last one. He doesn't fit my idea of a godly man. Man, this is a big one, right? Sometimes we have this idea, I can speak for myself, right? We want someone who knows tasbihah by heart, can quote at least 25 Bible verses with references and the authors and the date they were written, right? Who has at least 3 Bibles that they read through with Bible covers and notes everywhere, right? We have this idea of what a godly person is. They have to serve all the time, right? I have to see them at church every week, right? But sometimes we mistake practices and what we see for spirituality, right? And character, right? And we're going to talk about character, by the way. Next week we'll talk about character, God willing. Because character is what matters. Not having money and having a nice car and having the best career in the whole world, right? We need someone who's honest, someone who loves God, who can support you, all these things, but that's for another day. So, great. Sometimes we have rigid rules that have nothing to do with spiritual maturity or real faith, right? We have to see if this person loves God. Is this person committed to Christ? That's what matters, right? Because you can have someone, I'll tell you guys something, and I'll speak for myself. All the times that I'm up there being a deacon, maybe I'm praying one time a year, right? So if you just say, oh, I want a guy who's a deacon, wait, hold on a second, right? We need to learn about the person and see if they really love God. Are they praying from their heart, or they're just doing it because there's a microphone, right? This is what really matters. Last principle, guys, my friends, because we're gonna die here. It's just so hot, man. All right, dating is for healthy people. Dating is huh?
Topic is hot, but you
It's just crazy. So, dating, my friends, is for healthy people. No one is perfect, but no one is perfect. No one is perfect. No one's perfect. Actually, dating is one of the means through which God will perfect you, and so is marriage, right? But you are not ready to date, and this is what Abuna and Dr. Samir were coming at from the beginning, right? And I want to make this very clear. You are not ready to date if you need to develop emotional connectedness. There's 4 things that I want to focus on, right? So if you have no idea how to have any type of emotional activity in your life, right? If you just go through life and you work, and then you sleep and you hang out with friends, and when you hang out with friends, you're just watching a movie, you don't have conversations with people about anything inside of you, right? Let me tell you something, guys. Just because we're short on time, I'll say this very quickly. I could put up here something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs is Maslow was a psychologist, and he started saying that when people exist, right, there's a hierarchy of the things that they need, and they accomplish these things in a specific order, right? So the last one is self-actualization, right, which is like the best one. But the first one is just having like air and water and shelter, right? These things are very important, right? So first thing you do is you want to have air, water, and shelter, right? Then the next thing is you want to have somebody to care for you, right? You want to have some kind of relationship, right? And then there's something else, and then there's the highest thing. We come from a culture, and this is what I want to explain to you, and the books are even talking about this, right? Please pay attention to this very, very closely, right? Because this is going to help us explain what's happening in the transition of cultures that we're in, right? We come from a culture where many people, much more percentage of the country is people who are poor, right? It's not people who are bad or worse. It's just more people are poor in our country, right? Than they are in America, right? So the focus and the effort in the day, you spend a lot of time, and our parents work Very, very hard. I know one of my friends, he was telling me his parents were engineers in Egypt, and then when they came to America, they were working at McDonald's for years, right? So they have a very hard-working culture, right? So they come home, right? And I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm just showing you that there's differences, and we have to be aware of them. They come home, and they're already very tired, right? They spend so much time just trying to feed the family, right? And it's not everybody, I'm not generalizing, right? But there's not enough time or energy or effort where, like we have now in America, where you have jobs, you have unemployment, you have Social Security, you have all these things. When the husband comes home at 5 o'clock, he has some energy, and now he has 3 hours to spend with his family. You know, he can talk to his wife, and they can have conversations and sit and eat at the table and all these things, right? Now we're in a situation where you need so much more emotional intelligence. You need to be so much more emotionally aware in this culture, right? Now the problem is not, do you have money and are you working and do you have an education? Now the problem, what do you hear from couples here, right? You don't hear as much that they're getting beat or the guy doesn't make enough money. A lot of times you find these well-off couples, and you do have those too. There's well-off couple who's saying, he doesn't talk to me, he doesn't listen, right? I feel like he's not around, right? All these things. And this is because of all the blessings that we have to live in this country. These are the problems that we're at risk of facing. That we have fights and we start yelling at each other. We don't even know how to handle these emotions, right? So we have to be able to develop emotional connections. We have to understand what's happening in our hearts, right? So until you start this, then you're not ready. Number 2 is establish good boundaries. You have to have this word ready in your vocabulary. No. You have to be able to say no when you should say no. You have to be able to say no when you should say no, right? Not just when it comes to, you know, like having sex and all that stuff, right? But also, you know, if you don't like the way you're being spoken to, right? If you don't like the way that your partner's parents are dealing with you, you need to be able to voice your opinion. You have to be able to say your opinion. You have to be aware of your own opinion. You cannot be suppressed your whole life, right? I'm not saying you cannot compromise. Compromise is essential for a healthy relationship. But compromise means that there are 2 opinions and you're making a compromise, right? But if you're not even aware of your own opinion, that's not compromise, right? That's like self-destruction or something, right? Compromise, so for it to be real, there has to be 2 clear opinions, right? You have to be able to have healthy boundaries. You have to say, no, I don't want to kiss right now. I don't want to. No, it's not the right time. No, I can't talk right now because I have to study. Number 3 is accept reality, right? There's only a 4th one and then we're done. Number 3 is accept reality. Guys, nobody's perfect, right? If you're looking for a perfect person, and I gotta say this to myself too, if you're looking for a perfect person, right, it's not gonna happen, right? If you think that relationships and that your partner is gonna be the best, you're never gonna fight about everything, about anything, everything's gonna be fine, you have not accepted reality. You're not ready to date if you think that this is what you're gonna find. No one is perfect. And actually, part of the way that God perfects you is by helping you deal with another person's imperfections, right? You have to serve the other person, right? Okay. And the last one is grow up and become equal with others. This one we spoke about a lot, which is that you can't do it if you're not an adult, right? You have to be mature, right? Again, we talked about this a million times, but you gotta be a man and you gotta be a woman, right? You can't be running around and being completely dependent on anything that anybody older than you tells you, and you're not independent. You need to watch them, okay? So these issues need to be resolved in a non-dating context, and it doesn't mean completely resolved. At least start resolving them, right? There's hundreds more issues. There's lots of other things to talk about. We can't cover everything in 1 week. And I just wanted to do, so here it says, behold, I bring her health and healing for her wounds. Yes, I will heal this city and bring about peace and faithfulness. That Christ will heal, right? No matter what the issue is, God will take care of it. But you have to take initiative and say, God, I need help. Please, God, help me. So, does anybody want to say anything before we conclude?
I have a question. Like in psychology, I mean in general, when a person starts to know themselves, does that necessarily mean you have to date? Because like in psychology, it says like once a person reaches a stage of having self-realization, that person needs to get to know somebody else, or that person will feel like home, and a part of them will be missing.
Being in relationships in general is something that God intended for all of his children, but he intended for it at the right time, right? So I want you to know the normal thing is for everyone to be in a relationship, right? It's a commandment from God, right? He said, be fruitful and multiply, right? But at the same time, guys, just because you reach that point, by the way, we might think we reached that point, but you didn't. I can tell you there's people who are 50, 60 years old, they don't know themselves, right? So that's why, like we said in the very beginning, you should not start taking a lot of activity in this area of your life unless you have a team to guide you in, right? Even if you think you know yourself, again, guys, you're already a part of a community. You were raised by a community. You were raised by many people. Your whole life has many people in it, right? So don't start this thing that's one of the most significant things in your life without people, right? So even if you do know yourself, you're probably wrong, because you're not going to know yourself till you're like till you're in heaven, right? There's just a man and a woman, a human is deep, because you were created by an eternal, infinite God, right? He created you to be immortal, right? To live forever. He wanted you to. He created you for heaven, right? So you need to learn things about yourself. Okay. So, review and conclusion is, we have lots of work to do. We said lots of confusing things, right? This applies to everyone differently, and dating is as much for learning about yourself as it is about finding a spouse. The first principle was just be active. God does his part, you do your part. Number 2 is change your patterns, right? Doing the same thing will never result in something different. Number 3 is check yourself, right? Which is, everything that happens on the outside has at its root something on the inside. And the last one is resolve serious issues before dating, because dating is for healthy people. Next week, we're going to talk about the 5 dating truths. Really exciting stuff, great examples. Any questions?